The control panels for Visualis3R are located on the left hand side of the screen, and it's really very simple. There are a few different drop down sections which you can access. So first of all, we have the environmental controls. This actually controls the spherical 3D lighting that reflects off your file. So for example, if we just move this file now, you can see that those lighting, shading, the reflections, that comes from the environment. So how do we control that? So first of all, we have two main environments. We have an indoor and an outdoor, and then you can put a color overlay on top of it. So for example, at the moment, we are actually in an indoor environment, and that indoor environment can be rotated, so you can move it around if you like. And by doing so, you'll get different lighting and shading on your design, as you can see here. You can also move your canvas up and down, left and right, using these controls here. However, it's probably just more logical to do it using your keyboard. So for example, holding down the spacebar and clicking, you can drag and move your file anywhere on the screen. You can also do things like nudging with your arrows, so nudging up, nudging down, left and right. We can also then do panning. So for example, we can pan on the X-axis by holding down the Shift key. If we hold down the Option key, we can pan on the Y-axis or the yaw. So we have full control. If you click and move, you can rotate the file around freely. And if you get it to a place where you want to reset it, down here we do have controls, which I'll get to in a moment. So I'm just going to quickly reset that now. Okay, so sticking with the environmental controls, we also have an outdoor environment. That's more of a light-based, obviously outdoors, brighter, whiter lights. And then the color overlays. So for example, if I'm wanting to use the indoor lighting, and I can now switch this to say dark gray, the indoor lighting is still there, it's just got a gray overlay over it. So we have a couple of different colors. We've got like the Photoshop kind of environment here. We have a light gray, which is your typical pre-pressed lighting conditions. And then we also have a black and we have a white. So if you're wanting to make a video, maybe you want to put it onto your website, you want a nice clean white background, you can do so. So moving on from that, we also have directional lighting. So what does that do? Well, it's a secondary lighting that basically reflects off your different types of effects. So whether it's metallics, whether it's off varnishing. So let's just show you that now. So you can see here, we're moving the lighting around. So we can focal the lighting on any particular area we want, which is great when you're doing image captures. So for example, you might be doing, say, maybe this is like a greeting card and it's got a varnish on there, maybe you've got metallics or foils. You can actually move your lighting around to get the best looking image for when you do your capture. So you can do an image capture and then you could use that on a website. So it's a great way to be able to fine tune and get everything just in the right place. And that's really what this software is about. Fine-tuning, setting it up the way you want it to work. You can switch the lighting on and off. You can also set it as a default. So let's say, for example, I prefer working with, say, a light grey background, and I prefer my room to be slightly different rotation. Then I can maybe change my lighting, maybe I don't want it quite so intense. I can set that as a default. So now you're not using the factory defaults that are inside the app itself, you're actually using your preferred settings. Now let's just demonstrate that. If I move this all around and go a little bit weird and move it completely off center, if I now do reset to default, that's resetting to your default that you saved. So your positions, your canvas positions, your lighting and everything else. Now if I do factory reset, that's going to put all these settings only in this section. So that factory reset is only for each category that we're working in. It will reset it back to a dark grey environment. All the sliders will go back to normal, as we can see here, and we're back to the original default. So tailoring the software the way you want it to work. We don't believe that you should have to be restricted by how a software works. You should have full control over every effect. So down below here we have select PDF. So that's how you add the PDF into your viewing program. We can have an increased resolution option. So for example, if you have a business card is really quite small. So by the time it zooms and scales up onto the screen, that is a ripped data. So you're no longer got vector graphics, it's ripped grayscale TIFFs that it's bringing in here. So you're going to get pixelation. So you can use the increased resolution option to re-render that file at a higher resolution. And that's a fantastic way to handle things that maybe a small file or fine line details where you want to get the best crisper results for it. Now, moving on below that, we have the color separation section. So this is your artwork file. This is your PDF file, you see CMYK plus your spot colors. And in this instance, we've got a varnish separation here. We're doing it as a sculptured varnish, which means that it's raised and got texture to it, like a 3D effect. And we can control the varnish depth. We can control everything else with these settings. So do pay attention to our tutorial videos. We have ones for every single one of these parts that we support. You can then go inside here and do the same sort of thing. You can save your preferred settings. So for example, you might want to work with a spot color called varnish, and you might want it to be sculptured, and you might want a certain bevel and depth and varnish and glossy and everything else. You can save all that as your preferred default. So every time you open up the app and every time it recognizes the varnish separation, it will have your preferred settings, which means you can match it to what you're doing on your press. So if you're a printer, you can tailor all this to match all of your settings, whether it's a Duplo. We handle Duplo varnishing in here. We actually got dedicated naming in for Duplo. We have also then the option to go and set factory reset. And you can also, in addition to this, save presets. It's like a library. So for example, maybe you're doing one job is a flat varnish on an offset press. Maybe one job is a Duplo. So you can save different settings for different devices, and then you can call them up later on. You can also export these out as well. So if you are a printer and you want to give your settings to a designer that's using the software, you can export out any one of those settings. So you just select what setting you want, export it, send it to your client. They can import it into their software and visualize your effects on their screen, what you've set and said, this is what it looks like. You can also import, delete, reset, and all that sort of stuff. So really, it's putting the power into the hands of the designers, the pre-press and the printers and the brands to be able to tailor the software exactly the way that everything works. So if you're matching a foil, you can go to, there's so many different foil companies out there. For example, Unifoil has a new material called Uniluster DI. It's a fantastic metallic material. They also have a rainbow holographic, and that has a very particular reflectivity. There's a certain grayness to the material. There's a reflection to that material, and you can match that. You could also go to something like Foilco. Foilco have about 150 different colored foils and effects from, you know, different types of golds and everything else. And you can match all of those effects. You can add textures to them. We can do so much with this software. So do take a look at all the tutorial videos. So below that, we have the substrate control. So inside here, we have the ability to visualize things like uncoated paper, matte coated, satin, gloss. We can also change ink absorption and gloss sliders to match the type of material. We could switch it to a foil, clears, rainbow holographics, glitters, brush metals, and plastics. So we're adding more features as and when we go along, but do take a look at all the video tutorials, as I said, for everything. Now down below there, we have some icons. So what do all these mean? Well, we've got the reset. So this is the reset the view to front and center. We have the UV light switch. If you have a design that has an invisible ink, you can switch on the UV light. This one doesn't have a UV light, so there's nothing to show you. We can do image capture, so this will capture your image, transparent PNG file, so it's just going to capture this design exactly as we see on here. And that's where the environmental controls come in handy by positioning the lighting. We also have a video recording, so if you click on video record, you can move it around freely if you want to. Or you could also use these controls down here. So let's see what they do. So we've got this one here. This one will basically tilt it left to right. We then have this one here, which is going to be a forward and backwards tilt. And then we have the orbital roll, which basically is on an angle. So we get a slightly different view. You can also position things slightly different, so maybe you want the position like this, maybe we want to move it up, and then we can do the tilt, so we can rotate it to a specific look and feel that we want. So you've got, again, you've got that full control over how everything works and interacts. Now we also have the option to rotate a page, so if something comes in and it's portrait, but you want to look at it landscape, you can rotate the file around. It will do 90 degrees, and obviously you'll get back to where you were. Down at the bottom, these two icons are import and export. So all the settings that you can set up in here, whether it's for like your varnish settings, your substrates, your environmental controls, all your different presets, everything that you put into this system, you can export it. And that's very important. You want to back up your settings. So when you've got it, save it. It will save a file down to your computer. And then that way, if you want to move to a new computer, you can import it. So you could say, set up 3 different terminals. set them all up with the same settings by export one and import into another. So you can share them as well across devices. We also have links through to support, so if you do need help, click on it, it will take you to the website, it will take you to a email site page, and you can email us for help. There's also the link to the video training videos, which is probably where you are now, so inside there. Now the last thing I want to show you, right in the top right hand corner, we have a settings box. So what we're going to do here is we're going to upload a logo. So I'm going to go upload. So upload a PNG file, and that will appear in the bottom left hand corner down here. And the reason for that is that we don't want it to basically be in the sidebar, because the sidebar is not captured when you do a video recording, and so you want it in here. So if you do a video capture, it is going to take this whole of this grey area here. So quite handy for doing this as well. Now the other thing what we want to do is we're going to put on a tagline and the date. So we've got date appearing down in the bottom, and the tagline is basically metadata. So it could be Visualis3R copyright 2025. You could have proof, I don't know, Xmas card proof 1.2. Maybe it's the second iteration that we've done. So that information can then appear down in there. So if we are going to do an image capture, then obviously it will appear on your image capture as well. Will also appear on your videos, so you can switch them on and off. If you don't want them to be there, you can switch those off. So that's it. That's how the basics work. It's environmental control. It's how you basically work the file, how you can change the settings, and above all, again, stress that fact that it's personalizing the software to the way that you want to work. You're not restricted. You don't get a system that says this is blue foil, this is red foil. You can mix and match any colored foil, any metallic ink, any spot color. You've got varnishing, you've got embossing, you've got matte and gloss laminations, you've got different substrate controls, there's invisible inks, there's everything you should need. But if there's something that we're missing, please let us know. If we can code it, we will add it. We do have future upgrades going to be coming out with new features. I won't tell you exactly what they are just yet. We don't want to give away too many of our surprises. But if you do have any suggestions, we are always willing to listen to it. If we can add it, like I said, we will do so. Support and training is always free, so do take a look at the Visualis3R website, which is www.v3r.studio.